Nation, part of the Secwepemc Nation in British Columbia. But I have lived, worked, and played here in Mohkinstsis and Calgary for many years. I've had the great joy of being able to work with many of our guests and my colleagues in different capacities over the years. So I right now get to support Cindy, who's my boss, who bosses me around all day long. Just kidding. Cindy, I get to work with Cindy on this project in the part-time capacity. And so supporting Cindy and hosting our elders advisory groups and our advisory committees and helping host some of these community dialogues over the period of the development of what this toolkit and some other pieces that we've been doing. So very happy to be here. Thank you, Casey, so much for starting us off in a good way. And, you know, hopefully my translation just summed it right on up and got it right to the point. And yeah, it's just good to see you again, my friend. It's good to see you on a Friday. And it's an excellent way to help lead out my Friday afternoon. So thanks everyone for being here. So good to meet everybody.
Hello, my name is Solange Lalonde, and I am Cree Métis and French Canadian ancestry. And I often feel like just taking toddler steps and learning more and more and more every single time I really approach all of this work, you know, humbly as a learner, and I try to listen intently, because it's just incredible learning all of the information, but then also learning all the different ways, you know, to approach learning and approach community. And I'm very, very grateful, and I'm grateful for having the opportunity to meet with elders like Casey. Casey, thank you so much for starting us off in a good way, and just any opportunity that I have to listen and to meet, even, you know, through the internet waves. I'm there. I'm very, very grateful for this, and to be able to work with Cindy and Christy, and, you know, just a strong group of women, and we're just trying to, you know, leave a legacy, really plant some seeds where, you know, hopefully we'll see what this looks like and imagine a better future, and starting to think about what that exchange looks like when we bring together Indigenous community members and newcomer community members, and learning from one another, alongside one another. And I'm just very grateful, and nice to meet all of you. Thank you for those introductions. And even though we can't be in person, it's fantastic to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, wonderful ladies. Taylor.
Hi, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet before my kids start screaming. They've been fighting all morning. So hi, my name's Taylor Sparkling Eyes. I'm part of the Help Seeker team that is doing the program evaluation on the Indigenous education. And I'm excited to be here and hear another elders teaching. So thank you for allowing me to join today.
Thank you so much, Taylor. She's so humble and so kind, and she brings so much wisdom and knowledge herself with her life experience and her technology background as well. And we sincerely appreciate us old birds. Sometimes we can't keep up with the technology. So you young birds help us in our own growth too, so that we can still be relevant and be a part of our teachings today. So thank you so much. So today we have the wonderful privilege of sitting and learning from Casey. He's been with us since the very beginning, and he was there to help us build not only an Indigenous advisory committee, but also to reach out to elders and help us build an elders advisory council in this work. And the group should know as well that the initial elders, 7 elders from this territory, grew into 12 elders. We actually have newcomer elders as a part of this wonderful wisdom that we, they give us ideas, they point us in a direction, and then, Christy, Solange, myself, and Taylor, and Monique Fry, we just, get the work done. So we really acknowledge, all of that wonderful work that's brought us to the end of this fiscal year 3. And we're actually going into the next phase of our project. And Casey, you should know that the center we're doing everything we can to ensure that we continue with the Elders Council. Actually, it's going to be 13 elders. We're going to include a Métis elder as well in the group moving forward. So more wonderful work ahead for us. I'll let the cat out of the bag. We're keeping basically the whole education team moving forward. That's Solange with the being our learning advisor and our consultant, our curriculum consultant. We are keeping Christy as well. She continues to be a part of this work for the entire year. And Help Seeker with Monique Fry and Taylor. Sparkling Eyes will continue to be a part of this work moving forward. So we have a wonderful team to bring us forward in a good way. And for the community dialogues, the original purpose and intent from the community dialogues was to give community, an opportunity to engage with our elders, ask them questions, learn from them in a learning environment. And originally it was, of course, before COVID and, this whole global change where we're not in normal times. We've done our best to adjust to a virtual offering. And so we've continued with what we call the 7 sacred teaching. Again, just that opportunity for, some learning based on the elders' lived experience and worldview. We've used Blackfoot, we've used Dene teaching, we've used Cree teaching, and we've used Cree Blackfoot teaching, so far in this work. I've only been here for about 10 months, so I was, busy catching up and picking up, all of the pieces of the work that we had to do to continue to move forward with this important work. And it was the elders that, again, gave us direction 10 months ago, and they said, it would be good if we can include the 7 sacred teachings, or at least a teaching on values as a foundation in this work and in the offerings where we can engage community both locally and regionally beyond, the city borders, sometimes beyond the borders of Alberta as well. So that's where we did the series. We brought in both male and female elders, to sit with us and to be with us. We have the privilege of, doing some pre-recordings when the elders couldn't be with us. But for the last 2, we were so privileged to have last month Elder Hal Eagletail from Sutina with his Dene perspectives. And this week we are rounding up and finishing off with the best. We saved the best for last. And that's Elder Casey Eaglespeaker to bring us, full circle with what you are willing to share with us, Casey. And I guess our ask is just to highlight from that Indigenous worldview the value of reciprocity to help us in our life, to help us in our work, and to help us build relatives with each other. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Casey.
I'm doing it all in sign, by the way. Welcome, all of you. We look at the word reciprocity is about giving and receiving equally in all levels. But, when you look at the 7 sacred teachings like love, what is that in our language is, well, in Blackfoot, we don't have a word for love, but it's something that we look at and saying that it's a deeper meaning. In Blackfoot, I would say tikakomim. In translation, it doesn't say love. In translation, it loses all context. It talks about, I'm very fond of this person. But when I say that and interpret that through the Blackfoot lens, tikakomimba means, like, say, if I refer to my wife, is that I chose to share my life with her, to walk through the journey of life, as she in turn chose to share her life with me, and that at no point in time is there ownership, but there's total equality and equity between the two of us. In life, as we see that, is that in order for that to happen, a person must learn how to love themselves. We've been removed from that. We search for love outside of ourselves, and there's no reciprocity around that. There's nothing coming back. It's only when you learn to love who you are as a human being and all the qualities that you carry. When you express that, that's the same like person will enter your life. Same like groupings of people will enter your life. And then that a shared experience. And that's where everything reciprocates, everything is returned, and it continues to flow and expand. And in building community, that's what we look at. If we look at Indigenous communities and through the Blackfoot lens, is that when we start loving all people as the way that we love ourselves, the community will gain strength and will grow. At the same time, I also realized that I also need to be kind to those who were unkind to me in the past. And I need to be able to have that capability to do that. And that capability is through the power of self-love. It's not selfish. It's really opening yourself up to the possibilities of growth, to create that level of understanding and humility and humbleness with all others. And that's a very critical part of our journey in life, is that until I can really accept everything about me and who I am, and realize that, yes, I'm only one of a kind, but I also don't have all the answers of life. You know, it's that collective part of it that we see, that a collective responsibility, as I often say. But in doing that, in creating that, we also realize that through seven sacred teaching, our ultimate goal is to make relations. But to remember with that, making relations travels only at the speed of trust. And those two are joined together. You cannot do one without the other. So part of that love is there about who you are, and learning how to trust everything about you, and understanding the history you come from, and knowing your own truth. And it comes to that part about the truth, is that we all have our truths. Some may not be as joyful and vibrant as others, but still our truth. And we must exercise courage and bravery to express our truth, to bring that warrior spirit out and say, this is my truth. This is what makes me who I am today. You know, and I look at that, and I look at my own journey in life and saying, the truth I went through and the early stages of life in residential school is that I can appreciate what I went through, because it gave me the power and the courage and the strength to say, I will not let this ever happen again to those into the future, our young people who are the leaders of today and the experts of the now, but to the children and those yet to be born, that we look at them and saying, this is who I do it for. This is why it's important as I look at that, because one, what I do and what I give is going to reciprocate to a healthier community, to a healthier peoples. And that's the way of our people in all Indigenous communities, is that it was a giving, sharing, community mindedness that we exercised. And it was very important that we did, because we see that lesson coming in from nature itself. It shares everything. You know, it's like looking at an oak tree and a pine tree. You never hear them argue with each other on how to be, but they share the resources around them. And then in turn, provide nutrients for other forms of life. And in building communities and building relationships is to really understand the teachers that we have. We're all nature, every one of us, and we're all part of it. And we have to be able to do and give of ourselves so that it can return 10 times fold, as we often say. You know, it's that, you know, and we see that, you know, and just like the eagle that represents love, we also realize that the eagle also teaches something beyond that. It's about the spiritual strength, but it teaches us that we cannot go backwards. An eagle does not have the capability to fly backwards. And as human beings, we can only go forward. So as we exercise that with ourselves, because we don't have that capacity of loving ourselves to move forward, then we can't move forward. We end up getting stuck and reliving the past, and it's not a place to relive, it's a place of learning in order to move forward. So as we go through that journey and that level of respect, mutual, unconditional respect for all people, to remove all biases, both conscious and unconscious biases, to remove cultural biases, to respect each other as just being human beings first, because that's our first and true identity. And when we exercise that, and to respect self, again, it begins with you. You're the center of all that needs to happen around the seven sacred teachings, especially around reciprocity. You are the core. And you need to realize the level of respect that you need to carry for you. To exercise that mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Not to walk with shame and your head hung low, but to walk with pride, dignity, honor, humility, and humbleness, and hold your head high. You have that right to do so as a human being, despite anything that may have happened to you in the past, but to respect where you're at today. You would not be here today if you weren't searching. You would not be here now if the Creator did not know you more than you know yourself and realize that you deserve the gift of life. But now we must become conscious of that I need to respect who I am, that I have no room for a false mask, that my mask is the love and truth of who I am. And it's not egotistical or self-centeredness. That when you express those, when you bring that to fold, that's what you're going to feed outward to all others. And will not always be openly accepted by all people. We have to remind ourselves that. But those that it does reach is what counts most. Those are the ones who are meant to be. In our way, the ones who are there are the ones who are meant to be there. And the ones who enter my life are meant to be. Because there are others who choose to walk in a different journey, and that's okay. And again, we just respect that choice, that journey they choose. But to always keep our hearts and minds open and to be kind and gentle. To carry that level of compassion for them. And that level of compassion really gains strength through respect. You know, as we go through that journey, you probably heard other versions of that, but what I'm doing right now is just to bring it all into a package. And that package is called reciprocity. That as we exercise that, as we walk it, live it, breathe it, that becomes so much a part of you that it becomes an everyday way of being without having to think, well, the seven sacred teachings tells me I need to do this. No, it doesn't tell you that you need to do that. It's only guiding you to make those choices. And it's those choices that you make. And the choices you make today are about today, not the choices of yesterday. You know, and there's often, as we go through that, and we start looking at, you know, courage. And a lot of times I think it should have had courage and bravery. But the courage to step up, to be real, to be human, and to be a warrior. And to supplement that with bravery, not to use fear to withhold what you have in your heart, what you see, what could be, what are the possibilities, what are my dreams of tomorrow, what the future can be. Well, the courage is to create you. That's going to make that dream come true of what our community can look like, what our relation could look like. And it's that courage of developing and in exercising the true you to create the person that makes these dreams come true. Because you can definitely cannot be like anybody else. You know, and that's a given. You know, it's like saying, you know, who is the person that you would like to deem yourself after? Well, you can't be. You know, that's that given part. You know, it's like saying, you know, Solange is going to be creating herself to be exactly like Angelina Jolie. Well, she already exists, so we know she can't be. But she has to create her. You realize, ladies, I'll be picking on you throughout this day. But that's what we start looking at. Courage just to be true, just to be real. Bravery to remove those masks. Courage to create that ethical space. To create that area of safety within your own heart and mind, and with the people that you're developing this relationship with, and developing a very strong, healthy community. I mean, reciprocity in that area is to create those healthy relationships with all people in the community. And when that community starts to develop, it's the outcomes at the end that your children and children yet to be born in the future, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that don't have that true understanding of freedom. They'll be able to celebrate who they are without shame, without guilt, without cultural biases. That's a journey that we need to create. And that's the courage that you need to do, is the courage to create you now. It's been far too long that we've been hearing the words of even our own parents. You got to be more like your brother, your sister, your cousin, your friend. You can't be. Because as we start doing that and we start exercising that courage of change and developing, that's going to go outward. It's a natural flow to others. And what comes back out of that is other people are going to walk down that same journey now. The reward is that we all end up on that journey, but it takes a person to begin the journey. And that person is you. As often said, as the old people growing up would tell me, the world will not ever change for you. You change. So that the world that you choose to walk in will be as you had dreamt it to be. That becomes whole for you, and that your needs are fulfilled. That the people who are going to be in that world with you will be able to enjoy like things as you, life itself, to be able to celebrate that. And that's a very important step in my life, is being able to celebrate life, but realizing that I had to make the changes. I needed the courage to change myself. And then I had to bolster that by adding bravery to take that first step. Yes, fear was there, because I was walking into something that was foreign to me. Something that I was taught was unreal. And yet in my people, it was real. And when I took that step, the realities came in. It led me down that journey to be honest with myself. Honesty. It's not so much that I have to be honest with everybody else, I have to have that with me first. How can I be honest with people if I'm not honest with myself? And to be able to speak my truth and to be honest with my truth, that was most important. That's an important part of it. That if I'm honest with who I am, that I can have that, I can feed that without consciously thinking about it, but to do it by living it. And that comes back in the same fashion. That people are very comfortable about being honest with themselves. And I see that every time I communicate with people, when I'm amongst people. And those masks start coming off because they feel that sense of safety, that honesty is the guiding rule here, but I need to be honest with who I am. I need to be honest with the journey that I choose to walk on. It may not be a journey for all people, but it's definitely my journey. And that I need to be honest with myself that I cannot change people, because that's their journey. And we have to be honest that we cannot change the environment we live in. But there's two types of environment: the physical environment of Mother the Earth. But we have an opportunity to change the environment of the people around us. Changing that to a larger, stronger, collective group of people, such as yourselves in this group now. And that's a journey in itself. Is who are we? Well, the introductions is a part of it, about just being honest with who you are. And it's like that opening prayer, and having Christy translate that over. Although she can't speak Black, but she did a pretty good job. The only thing she forgot is that I was asking for the 649 numbers in Lotto Max. No. But maybe collectively we might do it. Who knows? So, and then, as we look through that, during the journey, you gain wisdom because you share your knowledge. Knowledge will never belong to you until you share it. And the more you share it, the more it resonates to being wisdom. Yeah, and that's the elders I grew up with in my journey were always telling me, when you know something, when you understand it, then you need to share it. Otherwise, it will disappear on you. But the more you share it, it'll be recognized as being wise, wisdom, which is what it's meant to do. wisdom is a gift that's represented in many different ways. And, I go back and say, what do we look at? I mean, we do know that, when we see things in our lives and say, who do we have? What can represent that? Well, we know the beaver represents wisdom in the knowledge it has. I mean, it creates dams that even modern architects can't even, for all the knowledge and technical skills they have, cannot recreate those dams. And in turn, when beavers create these dams, it reciprocates back into nature. It sustains life. It brings in more foliage and healthier trees and adds, life-giving forces to other forms of life, other forms of animal life, insect, birds, those that live within the waters, all in turn receive that from the beaver. So it's not just so much that they're building it to make a home, but they're bringing it out to all of nature. And with the Send Newcomers, what we're trying to do at the same time is we're going to be like the beaver. We're going to build something. This wall that we're going to refer to as a wall, but or a teepee liner. We're going to create this liner of a teepee that encompasses strength. It's going to encompass safety and security for all people. They're going to have that true strength of freedom to express themselves, to share their culture, that we may find those commonalities and parallels with each other as we walk through that. And again, reminding ourselves of that level of humility, that no one person or one cultural group in the world has all the answers, but it is that collective that we have. And that's a very important fact for all of us, is that collectiveness. But, as we look at that and saying, when I talked about making relations, and applying the 7 sacred teachings and having things in a reciprocal manner, that it's a natural flow. It's not something you create. You don't create reciprocity. Reciprocity is the result of making relations, building on trust, building on acceptance of each other, unconditional regards for each other, honoring each other. To be able to love each other as human beings. And that has nothing to do with Valentine's Day, by the way, people. This is about the everyday walk of life that life tends to receive. This is where we're coming from. So this is, I know it sounds like I've said a lot. It feels like I did, but I don't know if I've shared enough with you. So, but I'm going to leave it open for some questions, because I think there should be some questions that need to be answered. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. I mean, this is where some of that sacred teaching come in. Trust yourself and have the courage. So any questions?
I really acknowledge your wisdom, and for the group, we've been so privileged to sit in consultation, with the elders, and it's humbling, it's scary sometimes, but it's also as rewarding as any A or A+ that you get on any exam. It's a while back we had one of our other elders in the community sharing truth and honesty, as far as the sacred teaching for the community dialogue, and, had a lot of wisdom, from that natural law, and those things that we've learned from our ancestors, from the environment, to survive and to honor life, and, to acknowledge that under our worldview, Casey, there's no such thing as dominion. That word and that concept comes, from the Bible, and from that form of cultural expression based on a different worldview. But that's not our, worldview. In fact, ours is the exact opposite. There is no concept of dominion and I can't talk for anybody else, but within our Blackfoot worldview. So, and we don't, some of our sacred ceremonies and our expressions, we honor those teachings that have come to us from, those that fly, those that crawl, those that, walk on four legs, and those that swim. And we honor them, on our teepees, on our regalia, in our stories and in our songs, in our prayers, and we were never created in our Blackfoot worldview to sit in hierarchy over, other things. We call the plants, we call the rocks, we call the water, and all of those other animal life, insects, even frogs, even grasshoppers. They have their songs in our traditional worldview. So can you help me, Casey, just bring that concept of we don't have dominion. We don't believe in dominion in our worldview.
No, and it doesn't. I mean, that came through with a doctrine of discovery about superiority. And in our way, there is the only superior being as a creator. And places upon our Mother Earth that all was equal with each other. That we're never to believe that we're superior to nature or any other person. Ours is more of a community mindset and a way of being. That every voice mattered, from the youngest child to the oldest person. That they were equal to each other. And that we didn't count the numbers of the years a person was. But we recognized the gift of life for that day. Because that is the true lifetime measurement, is one day. And so those voices mattered. And because they mattered and honored and respected for voicing that, it created that healthy, strong community mindset where giving and sharing became such a easy part to do. Knowing that if I gave, it's going to come back tenfold, which means I can now help 10 more people tenfold. And that was the way of life for our people. It was never centered around self-gain. Dominion is based upon self-gain, self-serving, and that's not the way of the people. It was never the way of our people. It was about giving and sharing, and I found that true for all other First Nations, Inuit, and Métis settlement, was that same concept that we give and share. In Blackfoot, we say when a person is unwilling to say, we say, "Sikamaps." And the best translation we have is stingy, but it has more, but it's deeper than that. And we look at that and say, what is the depth of that? Well, it's a person who's withholding the rewards of life with others so they can grow, not only with themselves, but to other people. it'll have that effect as it spreads wide and far. Yeah, if I look at some of the ceremonies, the longhouse ceremony that they do when they have the potlatch, the amount of giving and sharing and how that reciprocates. And that's in, and even with ours and what we do in ceremony. When some of our societies, when they have their ceremony, at the end of their ceremony is a huge giveaway where they give to the community. What comes with that is the community will come and support again over and over throughout the year and be there for the next year's celebration, because it's that part of who we are. It's just the way it's so natural for us, because that's the way we're raised with. It's in our blood. It's in the air we breathe. It's in everything we see in nature. And it's those natural laws of nature that we also see that this is the teaching it has. And we follow that because it's the land that defines the language and the way of being for people. The way of being for the Black Confederacy here in our ancestral lands is diverse from the natural lands, let's say, going into BC, because the land there defines the culture and language there and the way of being. They're not different, they're just diverse. Ultimately, we all come out at the same level. The end result will always be the same. It's like looking at a river, it flows everywhere. But ultimately, they all gather in one large pool, whether it be the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. And there's no biases within that. So our people have understood that if I make relations and I build it with trust at the same time, then we too become one again as human beings. And that's so important as to what we are, and not to say, well, I'm a Blackfoot and all others don't matter. We have all the answers. That's an outright lie. But I am a human being. In Blackfoot, we say Nitsitapiks, our true self-defining word. Nitsitapi means real people, human beings. And any of the First Nations languages speak to the same context, human beings. Diverse in language, and yet end result, it's just being human beings. So in our way with dominions, which is a foreign concept, it was about the freedom, because prior to the introduction of dominion, our peoples throughout North South America traveled, having trade routes, intricate trade routes throughout all of North and South America, making relations. The concept of gathering for self came with European contact. And that was so foreign, and yet it was taught to us that this was the way to be. And we forgot our own way, and now we're saying, no, we're going to bring back what is true, to have those healthy sharing community, sharing and giving with each other, having that unconditional respect and regards for each other. In our way, well, was to say, to give a gift, there's a way that we look at that. If I was to tell Christy, here's a gift to you, but I want you to use it this way, then it's no longer a gift because I put a condition on it. So, and that's how we do things. So the moment you put a condition on anything, then you're really not creating a relation. You're not developing trust. You're not respecting that person's choice by putting conditions on. And that's the true way of our people, is that when they gave and shared with each other, there was never any expectations placed upon that gifting, that exchange. If any expectation was to happen, is that we have a strong relationship with each other now. We have an understanding relationship with each other. And that's far from being dominion. Hope that answers your question.
So eloquent and so, just those shared values. It's been a privilege, for the girls and I to, arrive at this point. We're planning a spring launch. So this toolkit, the accompanying facilitator guide, will be all ready, to go in hard copy form, for some. With the brilliance of Solange, it's also going to be offered in a digital space, as well. But it's been, it's been a real journey. And, that journey was of discovery. We had to, we're people, and, we come forward with people problems. There's times when we're battling, those younger people that they don't have the skill set yet, to look at something from 3,000 feet in the air, and to be that ethical space, to be that person that, is the receiver and the host, and, to ensure that everybody in this body of work sees themselves reflected, because that's important, and to seek that commonality. And, together we develop the safe places, much like these circle conversations that we have, virtual and in person. And, some of the quotes, that we've been able to gather along the way, along the journey, making relatives, that's a really, really strong statement with multiple impacts, and the possibility of multiple impacts. We're more similar. Our cultures make us more similar than dissimilar, with each other. A quote that we learned actually from one of the community dialogues, one of the early community dialogues, was brought forward by one of our esteemed individuals that's been a part of our advisory committee. And she said, Cindy, when newcomers, refugees, immigrants, come to Canada, and there's this dream and aspiration and hope for themselves, for their family, for the future, right? And to live that good life and a rewarding life. She said, a lot don't have that mastery of English language yet. And so they're really, working hard as potential new Canadian citizens, using all of their five senses, to understand and observe and witness and experience what it is to be a Canadian. And, through these opportunities where we're talking and we're sharing time and energy with each other. There was a quote from a lady from the Hindu culture from one of the past community dialogues. And she said, in our language, the idea of community is embedded in all of us. And their word or their phrase for that is the world is our guest. And so, you know, it's a privilege to do this work in a way that we're trying to be the best hosts, you know, to be here for those that are willing to share whatever they want to share. The caveat though is that we come together in a respectful way. You know, it's okay that you don't know, you know, and there is no concept of dominion in this work, you know, today and moving forward. There is no concept, and you know, it's about that sharing time and energy, you know, and basically picking up the treasures that people like such as yourself, Elder Casey, you know, and all those ancestors, elders that have taught us along the way, to pick up the treasures that you're giving us, and, you know, to carry them like they're the most fragile piece of treasure in the world. So I don't know if there is any other questions. Maybe, you know, we can do, you know, a couple responses. How are you feeling, you know, right now? How on a Friday, it was probably a busy week. We're all putting our budgets together. We're all doing all those good, wonderful budget reports and narrative reports and being pleasing to our funders. So I know we're really busy, and, you know, for myself, when I sit and I listen to our elders and share in this way, I feel my heart rate, it slows down, you know, and I allow myself to go into a different space, so that, you know, I'm not so busy, and I can appreciate I can appreciate being here with all parts of who I am. And so that's my response. Hurley, I know you maybe had a question. Sorry to cut you off. Or how are you feeling?
Thank you so much, Cindy. And thank you to, I do not know if I will call Elder Sorel, but yeah, I was actually getting emotional here, Cindy, as always, whenever I attend an Indigenous dialogue. And, you know, so I just have two points here that really made me reflect of what has been shared by Elder Sorel Horse. And it resonates some sort of connectivity, being, you know, a Filipino, being non-Indigenous. As an immigrant coming here to Canada, sometimes you are valuing more on the tangible. So when we say tangible, so you have to speak in English, you have to follow the Canadian way, you have to have that Canadian experience. So oftentimes as a teacher, you know, back home and then coming to Canada, teaching in ESL, you see a lot of this kind of discussions, not only for yourself, confronting yourselves whether you are really doing of what is expected, or you are becoming true. It just somehow, you know, giving me some sort of reflection about that concept of bravery and courage. Like, am I masking myself too much to kind of subscribe to what is the standard that Canada is setting me to do so? And one of that is English. And the same manner with my learners, right? So we comply, you know, in the ESL environment, we have to comply because this is the expectation. No matter how zero is your English, you have to comply because you cannot meet the standards of what Canada has set. And as an educator, that is my role. That is my main responsibility, right? There was this scenario that made everyone laugh in one of the graduations that we hold in our organization. So I was teaching in low literacy, you know, so students. And then, so of course, it was in a spur of a moment when there were funders, IRCC and all, and then they requested this lady to say your thank you, you know. So you have to say thank you to IRCC. And my student said, why Canada? Why IRCC? I have to say thank you to God first, because God is my creator. Okay, so because sometimes in a spirit of, you know, in a spirit of unity and all, we somehow tell these students to refrain from using God and all that, because maybe you might, it is not politically correct. But my students, from her inner self, is saying that this is what I want to say. Before I will say thank you, IRCC, for allowing me to speak English, I want to say my God. I want to say the nature, the opportunity to come to Canada. So that hits me back to my experience in the Philippines, when my grandfather told me that in everything you do, in the journey that you have, you may acquire all those knowledge, all those skills, the degrees, anything. But in your prayer, don't forget to acknowledge your surrounding, because you are not who you are in your journey unless you acknowledge the people around, the little things, you know. So that's why when Elder Sorel was speaking about this courage, this beaver story, you reminded me again back to my story with my grandfather. Whenever he prayed in the Philippines, he would say, thank you to the water, to the air that we breathe, you know. And somehow I'm forgetting it now in Canada, because as a teacher, I have to be respectful. I don't know what's the meaning of respect. I cannot say my own prayer because I have to consider everyone. So in a way, I got lost. Like, who am I really? In as much as I want to connect into this Canadian environment, I have also my sense of value. Who am I really as a non-Indigenous coming to Canada, where there is Western culture, there is Indigenous, and there are a lot of cultures surrounding in this environment. So it's kind of challenging, but that is why I continue my journey to attend into this training, because I just want to kind of close or bridge that gap in me as a teacher. Like, how do I represent myself in the classroom? Am I really doing it correctly? Or am I simply following of what the standards or the expectations? But nevertheless, Elder Sorel, you made me realize two things. I have to stop masking myself. That's bravery. I have to speak of what's really my truth. That's a courage. And I'm beginning to understand that more this time. And I'm really thankful for, you know, for the things that is being shared here. More than the knowledge, the skills that Canada taught me, I just have to simply go back of what is real, what is my truth. And I believe the truth is our connection, our commonalities, you know, our being together. And I think you really resonated a lot of my experiences way back from the Philippines, and my starting in Canada, and my integration also in Canada. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm keeping notes. I'm highlighting the bravery and courage here, and I will take this to my journey. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So Hurley, just to let you know, the Philippines is still connected. We're all connected to Mother Earth. So it doesn't matter which part of our Mother Earth we may be dwelling upon. That when we feel disconnected, just to go out to nature and just sit upon our mother and caress her and go back in memory, the fond memories of what it was, and to be able to speak your own language there. You know, everything around you is alive and animate and sacred. Everything has a spirit. So you'll always have an audience with you. Not to deny yourself the rights to be who you truly are. Yes, you come into Canada, and even Canada is a mispronunciation. It's a Neocall word saying Kanata. Yeah, you're just in the village. You know, all Canadians are village people. And I'll age myself. So if you know about the village people, then you could do the YMCA skit. So we're going to have Christy and Solange and Cindy do that here the next few minutes. But, you know, always take life. Don't take it so serious. Life is a gift for one day, and we are here to celebrate life. Yes, we have our responsibilities, but you also have a responsibility to celebrate you have today. It is the most precious and the most delicate gift we have. And when we can share a part of that kind of gift with others, it really resonates and travels outward and comes back, much like what you've described and what you just shared about what you've heard today. That's reciprocity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Hurley. I really look forward when I see your name on these community dialogues, because you bring such rich conversation, you know, to us. Thank you for the medicine. Where I come from, we would call that medicine. So we can just feel it, you know, and it brings you back, you know, to again, you know, my analogy in my teachings is, you know, when we're together and we're introducing each other, I don't want to know your name just yet. I want to know your grandparents' names. I want to know, you know, that homeland, that ancestral soil. I want to know that first off. And then I want, by way of introduction, I would ask for a last childhood memory of where you felt absolutely loved and absolutely safe. And so, you know, these opportunities with our elders, with these teachings, so that we can all share and reciprocate, like Casey is teaching us. My safe places, you know, I really let my spirit travel back to that, you know, I'm 4 or 5 years old. I'm sitting at my grandmother. I was raised by my maternal grandmother, sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table, smelling her homemade chicken soup in the background. These opportunities together allow me to travel, you know, back. So I'm with you, Hurley. I know exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for sharing. Miriam, I know you've had your hand up for a while. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sorry, one sec. Actually took me a good 10 minutes to find the hand button. I was looking all over. And I was like kind of panicking, I said, because I'm used to MS Teams anyways. Yeah, thank you so much for Cindy, what you said, and Hurley. I can relate to a lot of what you said about kind of feeling lost sometimes. And yeah, Elder Casey, I couldn't get my fingers moving quick enough to take down all the notes. And I saw Solange too. You were just a mile a minute. I don't know if I'm just trying to figure out how to word what came out to me. There's so much that came out, but I guess the main thing is, I'm just looking at my notes here. You know, you said everyone has their journey. We need the courage to change ourselves. The world won't change for you. Can't change the past. Now, you know, as you know, like I don't mean to bring up like the negative part, but because of colonization, of course, there's a lot of communities hurting. And I'm just listening to you, and I'm just wish that you could come to my community. Just kidding now. You know, like this makes you just feel proud. It just makes me feel so proud that these teachings are here, because, you know, I teach about so much of the bad stuff of history, about how much was lost, but being here and being able to listen to you, you know, it didn't work. We still have all of this. So it's just great. So back to those teachings about courage to change ourselves, you know, it made me think of a lot of my family and my friends who deal with shame and addictions and bad thoughts. And when I think that, you know, they're on their own journey, but I just sometimes I have this incentive to help, of course. But then I thought of the reciprocity. So does this mean like I'm just trying to find a way to think about it, like just always being loving and kind and understanding, and that reciprocity will eventually, you know, it'll just flow, like how you say. Like I'm trying to think of the right way to go about it, because, you know, I'm trying to deal with the Western way too. You know, you force someone into treatment center or something like that. You know, you try to really, yeah, just it brought up a bunch of feelings for me, because I try hard to, like, I have brothers who are dealing with a lot of, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
And anyways, I hope that made sense. Thank you.
It does. So if I look at that, you know, let me say that, and I approach it this way. A lifetime is a one-day event for every one of us. Yesterday's lifetime does not exist. It's all but memory. It's a place of learning, not reliving. Tomorrow is a place of hope by what we choose to do today. But in realizing that, we realize that everybody is uniquely one of a kind. None of us have replacements from the physical world. So when it comes to families and friends, we don't always have to like what they're doing, but appreciate what they are, that they're still with us.
Yeah.
That maybe the journey you're walking on will have that influence upon them. So when you're sharing that kindness and that love and that friendship continuously, that is going to ultimately take that effect where they actually make that choice for themselves. Because the Western way of doing, of saying, okay, I'm going to put Solange in treatment. Okay, it's not going to work because she's not doing it for her. It only works when a person does it, takes the courage to change themselves, to do it for themselves. But it must be done. They must see that example. And you can be that example without telling them. It's the walk that you choose to do that's going to have the greatest influence. And that's what's going to help them make that choice at the end. And it ain't going to happen overnight. You know, one of the virtues of our people is they always say, patience. Always be patient. Because when you rush through life, you're going to miss a lot of things in life itself too. It's when you take the patience and understanding of others and still to continue just to love them, to be kind to them. Those are the two greatest forces that's going to push them to bravery and courage to make that choice for themselves. And that's one of those are teachings that go way back through time, probably time to immemorial, that's always been that way. And that's the way of being. You know, we see that in nature constantly. And we forget that our physical world is one of the greatest classrooms that we can ever have. So now it's time for you to be kind to you. Be kind with you, knowing that the journey that you're choosing to walk is ultimately going to have those results so that your family members can now make that turn in their life. But be kind and gentle with you. You know, do it without self-judgment or condemnation, and the same thing with them. Don't condemn them or judge them. You know, because there's nothing wrong with them. It's about what happened to them. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I'm still unmuted. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's again, thank you for the medicine, Miriam. It's you know, it's truly an honor to sit and, you know, be a part of just be a part of the space, you know, and to sit in that ethical space. If anybody is wondering what ethical space is, it's this, you know, it just this opportunity to gather, to, you know, be willing to be a little bit vulnerable, to be open to listening, to read each other's body language, to be respectful of each other, and just be present and listen. That it is an honor. And Miriam, your journey is very much like, a lot of our journeys, as the grandsons, granddaughters of this thing called colonization, and all of those negative impacts, that continue to create injustices and harm within our own families, within our own communities, and broader. And it takes a lot of courage to say I'm proud of who I am, and it takes a lot of courage to make a statement like that. And in the journey of this work, there's a lot of young people that we heard from, and some were very impulsive. That's the gift of youth. That's the gift of a youthful spirit, and they're impulsive, and they experience, and they'll let you know exactly what they're experiencing. They'll let you know exactly what they're thinking. They'll let you know exactly what they're thinking of you. And and in this work, we've just been privileged to have that wisdom, the patience, and the guidance, of our elders that are saying, well, hold on, wait a minute here. This colonization story, and a great visual came out of our community dialogues where they're saying, well, hold it, wait a minute, especially when the refugee, and it was, on global news, a global news issue, and, it was being in the forefront, and, these families were fleeing their homelands, and, sometimes even sending their children by themselves because they were that committed to ensuring that their children were safe. And it was in the forefront, and happened pretty close to hashtag 250 in DC as well. So there's been a lot of this that has been top of mind and top of heart in this work. And the great visual during that time was the realization that this toolkit, this toolkit had to have some balance, because if it was just a story about those hardships and colonization and those atrocious impacts that we still live through, boy, it's going to be a sad document. Like, it's going to be really heavy, and it'll, probably break through any ceiling, no matter how many floors a building is. That's how heavy, the story and the content is. And the visual drawn was, whoa, these refugees, are we going to hit them over the head as they're walking down the steps of the plane? With all of our story of colonization as Indigenous people. So it was the elders, that reminded us that, we're carrying this to create those points of connection, and, to celebrate each other's cultures and have time, to learn about each other, and to seek those safe places. And so that was the beauty, behind this. And they said this body of work should be about history. It should have some of the current issues, but a good portion of it should have hope for the future. So, Miriam, thank you, because, your words just, showcase that, we of course, we're not going to overlook history. Of course, we're not going to overlook any of those things. But, we are going to have that hope for the future, and celebrate all of those different vehicles of cultural expression, with the language, the food, the dancing, the games. Now we're going to have a whole day of games. The elders challenged us. We're going to have a 2-day gathering, and the whole first day is going to be all about games. So, those are things that we're going to be growing into. And I don't want to get too much of the time either, but, there's a real power in prayer. And, it's not prayer to be sit in front of everybody. It's not a prayer to, let your family know that you're praying for them. But it's, those times when you're absolutely all by yourself and there's that uncertainty that's hitting, sitting with you, and you're like, wow. My healer passed away when I was, on a journey of helping people here in the city back in 2005. And I had gone to him, and he really, really helped me in my life, helped me achieve, a goal and a dream that I had. And he was dying. He was passing away, Jim Smalllegs, and he was in Lethbridge Hospital. And I remember I jolted out of sleep. It was probably 2:00 in the morning. We used to rent a basement suite, my daughters and I, in Bowness. So there I was in bed in Bowness about 2:00 in the morning, and I jolted out of sleep. And I remember being really sad, really, really, really sad. And my healer, helper of the people, would give the shirt off his back to help anyone in his life. He was sick with pneumonia, and he was diabetic. He had already lost full sight of one eye. He had already had both of his legs amputated. He was on dialysis. Of course, his kidneys weren't working. And he was in Lethbridge, and in my dream, he passed away. In my dream, he passed away. And I remember being so sad. And, I asked Creator, and I asked Creator, if you're going to take him, Creator, then please just take him. He's done so much for everybody, here. But if you're going to leave him behind and not take him, then I pray for all of those that are around him, all of his loved ones, and all of those ones that continue to go to him for help. I pray that we treat him and pray for him in the way that, should be. And it turned out it was about a couple months before he did actually pass away. He actually passed away and they revived him, but he was gone for almost 2 minutes. And then he was so sick, they just let him go home. And then I remember he called for me, my 2 aunties, and he said, come across the river. I need to see you. So we went there. I took the day. My boss let me take the day. And he brought me into that room where he used to doctor people. And it was just him and I. And he turned around and he told me word for word what my prayer was. And he told me, prayer is really strong. And he said, the way you pray, it's like you have a relationship directly with Creator. And it's not to downplay anybody else's way of praying or anything like that, but it just goes to that really, that real strong connection of relationship that you have, and that courage to be vulnerable when you need it. He did end up passing away, but I was able to see him. We had a good talk. He was buried on my birthday about 2 months later. It was really hard. And on his dying bed, there was somebody that was in the hospital that went to him and said, can you pray for me? And so in the last 2 hours before he died, he was still doctoring. He was still doing Creator's work, So with this, it gives me a lot of comfort, with our ways of being, with our ancient ways of caring for each other and ensuring that, we're existing and living life how we're meant to under Creator and in relationship with each other. And, to have prayer as a part of our life. So I hope these words offer you some comfort, Miriam. Sorry, I didn't mean to go so deep with everybody, but you know, there's a real power in prayer. So I don't know if we have any other questions. Diana says, I really appreciate this conversation. It is really meaningful. I have to go now. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. And you too, Diana, if she's still on the call or if she's gone. But you know, it's medicine for us to offer these kinds of opportunities to create ethical space with each other and to you know, share and celebrate our knowledge keepers, our encyclopedias, our PhDs. I think Casey has about 30 PhDs. You know, it's just such a privilege to sit, you know, with people. I don't know, I'll let you know what's going to happen. We have Taylor, our wonderful gal from the evaluator piece, to bring forward a post survey. We hope you participate in the post survey. Maybe she can put it in the chat now, and you can do it on your own. I will keep the Zoom on for, you know, some additional time at the end as well for those that want to do it right away. But Solange raised your hand.
Yes, I just wanted, thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing all of your stories today and sharing such wisdom, and especially Elder Casey, thank you so much. I just wanted to share a couple things that, you know, as I was furiously scribbling away, and it often doesn't make sense. It's just how I process what I'm hearing. It's just, it comes through weird ways through my pen, but I wanted to say, Hurley, when you were talking about navigating that in school, I used to teach school, and I taught in a public school. So there were often a lot of concerns how you talk about spirituality. And, you know, I used to always say, you know, where you find hope. And so some people find that hope from being outside. Some people, you know, call where they find their hope from God, from Creator. And so that was one way that I navigated bringing those, you know, allowing students to hear what resonated with them through the words that I was using. So I don't know if that's any helpful, but I wrote a little note to myself to talk about that. And, you know, every time we come together and we bring together community, you know, one way to think about it is to think about it through this diversity piece, but there's something I think that is way stronger than looking at it through a diversity lens, in terms of, you know, yes, all of our cultures are make us different. But I think the focus is on the commonality of how we feel about our culture and how we feel about the things that are important to us. And, you know, I especially appreciate, Casey, your message of, you know, courage and bravery to, you know, hold that close to our heart and how we live our lives. And it, you know, when I think about the kit, the kit is a constant playlist. And I like thinking more of it as a basket, of that gathering and collecting and holding it carefully in the basket. I can't help but think of what happens, you know, when we can express and share our personal, you know, how we feel connected to our culture, and how many people I've met who have said, you know, well, I don't have a culture, you know, I'm Canadian. And, you know, today in our conversations, it helped me to understand perhaps, you know, how that can be disturbing to somebody who feels they don't have a culture, to see other people embracing and sharing the love of theirs. So in some point, it becomes where the culture is the problem. But really, what's the problem is that sense of belonging. We feel a sense of belonging with one another when we can share how we feel about our culture. And, it just helps inform this wisdom everyone has shared today. This collective wisdom through sharing through our stories is helping me to really think about that sense of belonging. And for those who don't feel they have that same connection to culture, how we can bring that in through learning experiences, to approach it through a lens of learning. So I wanted to share that with you, and thank you, Casey, so much for these insights.
Yeah, thank you. When you look at that area, is that it's okay to put yourself on pause once in a while, to reflect, what can I learn from the past, both negative and positive things that have occurred. What can I learn from that? So I can collect my energy back, reclaim what is true, and then step forward again. But like I said, lessons from the eagle, like a frog as well, that we cannot go backwards. We can only go forwards. A frog can only leap forwards. So, and that's just the way nature is. But like, the other analogies that you can only step into a river once, because that body of water has now moved on. And so the next step is a new river. And that's what life is all about. Everything is always in motion. Everything is always moving. There's a change occurring at all times. It doesn't matter where we're at or who. Change is inevitable for every one of us. And that's important, that we become a part of change. I mean, we've all changed. I used that analogy this morning for a private school, a 2-hour session with them, and I talked about change and the resistance to change. I told them, well, how many of you have children? And quite a few of them did. I said, so what happened to your child? Where are they? Well, he's a young man or a young woman now on their own. Says, so during that change that you don't realize there's a change, was how often did you have to change the shoes to a new size? How often did you choose the shoes they were going to wear until they actually start making their own choices and their own changes? I told him, and that's just the way life is. I said, we don't own our children, and they do not own us, but we definitely belong together. We belong to each other. But in all cases, everybody deserves the freedom of personal choice, the freedom of walking that healing journey if they choose to. But we definitely cannot ever force them into that journey. It'll be more hurtful than not if we force them. But it is a personal journey. But as you walk it, as it forth, that becomes the greatest influence. So all being normal or abnormal, we look at this pandemic, and you got to remember our ancestors adjusted to the change. The Spanish flu, when it came out, which killed more people than COVID-19. And people adjusted that from what they knew to what they thought was not normal, became normal. And all we ended up with was a vaccine. And because flu is just like COVID, it kept mutating, so vaccines were created. So it is actually becoming normal. And we just have to remove our mindset that we want to go back to the good old days. Well, the good old days weren't always that good, put it that way. And I think one of my grandchildren told me, he said, I know who God is. And I told him, what's that? It says, when I hear you telling stories, Grandpa, God is the good old days. He put an acronym into it. He's 13 years old, but that's where we're at. And we can only create good things. That's what we need to do. And that was a teaching that my grandfather used to tell me. He said, when you're going to create something, make sure it's going to be good that all people can enjoy and share. He said, if you're going to create something evil, then you don't belong in this world. He said, but Creator knows you. He gave you that gift of life. So create something good. Create something that people can allow themselves to express what they have and to express the good that they can create. He said, but it has to take someone to do it. And that's what that journey is. Yeah. So, but thank you for that, Solange. Okay, I see some finger wrestling over here on the side there, thumb wrestling.
This is can I blow your mind? Can I blow your world? I'm going to ask Venus. She's pointing at me right now. We had a wonderful conversation just recently, and she blew my socks off. Venus, do you want to introduce yourself in Blackfoot?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, Sanidabi nisto Anna Coca Venus nisto Abadam Sinimada Agi. Yeah. I learned the Iseta people walking from Yeniksim Agadaska Sinimas Stohagio Bisi, University of Lethbridge. I'm on my first year of accounting. I work at my work right now. This is my coworker Tia. She's from Sixiga. I learned a lot of Blackfoot from my professor. I'm not supposed to be on the meeting right now, but I have to make time because I really wanna meet you. Yeah, I'm doing my stuff right now. Sorry. Yeah, so I learned Niseda books and from my teacher Mary Fox from the Ganawa, and it's just really wonderful. So I'm gonna say I can say the prayers, and I can say some sentences. It's like Ganawa bugax idome dagiyawa gema bibesini gi gagima gi mogaged gi nise dabisini exogapi gi iksi yigowa ni dohgo yubi aga daskasinimad stohgio busy. It's really hard what we experience in residential school, and the sentences before is Ganova believes in kindness, trying hard and be persevere, and the old way of life. And yeah, and right now I'm working as an indigenous focused internship under my owner. Yeah, and I'm doing really well. Yeah. I had like a talk with Cindy last week. It's really awesome, and I just want to keep introduced. I can speak. I can. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I have to go for a second.
Okay. That's pretty good. But that also, I mean, that tells you that we're all capable of learning.
Yeah.
I mean, life is learning, and learning is life. The day that I stop learning is the day I go home to the Creator. That's how I view that. So It's a
Yeah,
compliment.
that was such an amazing it was such an amazing gift. Totally came out of the blue. I wasn't going to answer because I didn't recognize the number, so I took a chance and I was gifted. She was just such a wonderful person, and we ended up staying on the phone for about 45 minutes. And she just told me, "I want to work for you. I don't want to work for these nappy ones to have no heart."
You know, it reminds you of that restaurant owner in Fort McLeod. He used to run Silver Grill. His name was George Gore, and he spoke fluent Blackfoot. He can converse with our elders so fluently. He mastered our language quite well. And, you know, I remember his words back then. He says, "I need to learn this so I can make good, strong relatives." That was his words.
Yeah,
So,
that was a good conversation we had. It was really, really a blessing. I know I want to, from my heart again, say thank you so much on behalf of our wonderful elders, our advisory committee, our wonderful education team with the ladies that are a part of this work. We have been on such a journey for the last 3 years. And it seems like it just went by in the blink of an eye. And, you know, here we are, and we're entering into the next phase of this work, where we'll actually have the resources, the kit itself, the facilitator guide. So just to let you know, Hurley, and Miriam and the others on this call, we are entering into the next phase, where we're going to be reaching out for those that are interested in the community to become facilitators, you know, to help bring this work into, you know, all parts of our work, our workplaces, and those that we have a chance to, you know, create that additional learning. And again, you know, the opportunity is to make relatives and to actually celebrate each other's cultures. So that's the work at hand. Taylor has put the post survey into the chat, so we encourage all of you to please spare a few minutes and answer that work. Maybe I'll ask Venus, can you say a closing prayer for us? Send us off in a good way. Make sure that we go into the Family Day weekend with love. And
yes, of course,
with love, and to remember that we need to have love for everybody as well. So can you send us off into the weekend with a prayer?
Yeah. Oh, so we are closing right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I just made it in. I'm glad I met you. Are you ready? Okay. Ayo ihisabat biyop. Ayo navi. Ayo nadusi. Ayo gogo mikisum. Es bomo hidada nistova. Oh. Ayo ihisabat biyop. Queda seda semado binan. Es bomo genan. Anok. Kasisego. Está mado genan. Soga bi gana bi moga moda bi no hasena nixi nina nixi nixis kasena nixi na hasena nixi oki gamadani misemi bada bi seni ganye. Thank you very much.